Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending today. My name is Elton Hall. I'm the Inspector of the Organized Crime Division with the Winnipeg Police Service. So I'm just going to get into it this morning. So I'll start off by saying in March of 2022, a large quantity of Canadian currency was seized at the Winnipeg International Airport. The Winnipeg Police Service Organized Crime Unit initially partnered with the Brandon Police Service and the RCMP to determine where the money originated from. The Winnipeg Police Service Organized Crime Unit and the Winnipeg Police Service Crime Analysis Unit identified a high-level interprovincial drug trafficking network responsible for the importation of controlled substances into Winnipeg from the Greater Toronto Area. It is believed that the money seized at the airport belongs to this drug trafficking network. The Winnipeg Police Service Organized Crime Unit worked closely with law enforcement agencies and determined that these parties were involved with and responsible for multiple firearms offences in Winnipeg and across Canada. These individuals were identified by multiple law enforcement agencies as being high-value targets involved in organized crime across the country. The Winnipeg Police Service Organized Crime Unit determined that numerous members of a well-entrenched network spanned across several cities in Canada. That includes Winnipeg, Toronto, Vancouver, Burlington, and Hamilton. After a lengthy probe, a criminal and concurrent financial investigation was initiated in May of 2023 by the Winnipeg Police Service Organized Crime Unit, which included the following agencies: Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Centre of Canada, or FINTRAC for short, Manitoba Criminal Intelligence Centre, Public Prosecution Service of Canada, the Ontario Provincial Police, Peel Regional Police, Hamilton Police Service, Vancouver Police Department, Toronto Police Service, Brandon Police Service, Halton Police Service, and Via Rail Canada Police Service. This network used various importation methods that include bus, rail, and airline companies, as well as highway-based couriers who used vehicles outfitted with custom-designed concealment compartments. This network also used various money transfer methods to disguise and launder money across Canada. As the project advanced, investigators learned members of this group were engaged in other criminality within Winnipeg and other provinces, including sex trafficking, extortion, and fraud-related offences. The Winnipeg Police Service Organized Crime Unit worked closely with the Vancouver Police Department Major Crimes Section in investigating some of these offences. I should be clear that this aspect of the investigation is ongoing. Throughout the investigation, instances arose in which the Winnipeg Police Service Organized Crime Unit, through the use of judicial authorizations, utilized covert police tactics to prevent indictable offences from occurring in Winnipeg. The weekend prior to March the 6th of 2024, a shooting occurred in a 200 block of Portage Avenue, where police learned individuals being investigated just discharged firearms at people during the early morning hours. The Winnipeg Police Service Organized Crime Unit, again, using judicial authorizations, utilized covert measures to prevent the movement of vehicles while disrupting the ability for individuals to participate in criminal behavior. 24-hour physical surveillance was initiated by the Winnipeg Police to prevent further gun violence and guarantee the safety of Winnipeggers. On March the 6th of 2024, 3 waves of high-risk search warrants were executed. In Winnipeg, shortly before 6 a.m., 4 search warrants were executed. In Vancouver, shortly after 4 a.m., 2 search warrants were executed, and at 7 a.m. in Toronto and Hamilton, further warrants were executed. At approximately 7 a.m. Central, 3 more high-risk search warrants were executed in Winnipeg, followed by a 3rd wave of search warrants in Winnipeg at 8 a.m. On March the 15th of 2024, the Toronto Police Service executed a search warrant of a vehicle that contained an aftermarket custom-designed concealment compartment. This vehicle, within this vehicle was a large quantity of drugs and money. On April 5th of 2024, 2 additional criminal code and CDSA search warrants were executed in the city of Winnipeg by the Organized Crime Unit. A total of 22 search warrants were executed that spanned several Canadian cities, including Winnipeg, Vancouver, Toronto, Hamilton, and Burlington. These warrants include a variety of criminal code search warrants, firearm search warrants, CDSA search warrants. As well, 22 production orders and/or search warrants were executed at financial institutions across Canada. I should add that this investigation has been referred to the Manitoba Justice Civil Property Forfeiture Unit. Throughout the entire investigation, over 80 judicial authorizations were written. This includes Part 6 authorizations, general warrants, production orders, tracking warrants, and criminal code search warrants. The following is a condensed list of items seized during Project Soft Landing. $1.7 million in Canadian currency, approximately 30 kilograms of cocaine, 75 kilograms of benzocaine, a large quantity of street-level fentanyl and oxycodone. To date, 4 handguns were seized, 2 of which are from the United States, trafficked into Canada, and 2 are 3D printed handguns. 1 submachine gun with a suppressor was seized, loaded magazines and ammunition. A hydraulic cocaine press was seized. A Rolls Royce valued at $450,000 was also seized. 12 vehicles that include 4 Mercedes-Benz, 2 BMWs, and 1 Lexus SUV was seized. Of note, 3 of these vehicles contained have custom-made concealment compartments within the vehicles. A 2017 Harley-Davidson was seized. Another $4 million in proceeds of crime was seized. And we are currently investigating the opportunity to claw back a $200,000 deposit for a Lamborghini. 14 individuals have been arrested to date on drug trafficking, conspiracy to traffic in a controlled substance, conspiracy to traffic in proceeds of crime, multiple firearms-related offenses, money laundering offenses, and other criminal code offenses. Tyrone Reed, 37 years of Toronto, was arrested. Andy Lee, 35 years of Hamilton, was arrested. Amber Imari, 27 years of Burlington, arrested. Iwona Glogowski, 31 years of Vancouver. Valentine Kokeni, 22 years of Vancouver. Darcy Warmington, 34 years of Winnipeg. Kevin Warmington, 34 years of Winnipeg. Taveri Sharp, 34 years of Winnipeg. Elvis Oyebo, 33 years of Winnipeg. Paige Preto, 27 years of Winnipeg. Fiona Lewis, 62 years of Winnipeg. Cornelius Hibbert, 55 years of Winnipeg. Adrian Cheston, 28 years of Winnipeg. Carrie Ann Thompson, 32 years of Winnipeg, have all been arrested to date. I should mention that several other individuals have been arrested and released without charges at this time, but we do anticipate laying further charges with many of these individuals at a later date. The investigation in Winnipeg is ongoing. The investigation east of Winnipeg, so in Ontario, is complete and has been for some time. This is a high-level overview of a very complex financial and criminal investigation. I want to publicly thank the other agencies who assisted in this. Obviously, we can't do it without their help. Before I take questions, I want to introduce the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, the Honourable Matt Wiebe, to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Inspector Hall, and good morning, everyone. On behalf of all Manitobans, I wanted to begin by thanking the Winnipeg Police Service, Brandon Police Service, and the members who executed this impressive investigation. I also want to extend a special thank you to the many partners in law enforcement and prosecutions from across Canada who have joined together to make this investigation a success. Crime knows no borders, and that's why we're committed to supporting law enforcement to target serious organized criminals who work across the country and in networks that stretch across the world. They bring havoc, they bring harm, they bring toxic drugs to our communities, and they must be stopped. As Minister of Justice and Attorney General, I'm proud to say that Manitoba, through the Manitoba Criminal Intelligence Centre, provided $230,000 in direct funding to support this investigation. This funding is part of our commitment to provide law enforcement agencies with the support that they need to go after organized crime. Thanks to the dedicated officers involved from across Canada, this coordinated operation resulted in the successful seizure of 30 kilograms of cocaine. The drugs seized have a street value of approximately $3.3 million, representing a significant blow to drug trafficking network that has been operating in Ontario, in Manitoba, and in British Columbia. This operation has not only taken a substantial amount of narcotics off of our streets, but as the inspector mentioned, also removed 4 handguns and 1 submachine gun off of our streets and out of our communities. This project also resulted in the seizure of $1.7 million in cash and $4 million in proceeds of crime, including jewelry, vehicles, and merchandise. Our government is committed to ensuring that crime never pays in Manitoba. I can assure you that Manitoba's Criminal Property Forfeiture Branch will be taking action to seize this property and redirect the proceeds to prevent future crime. Our government will also continue to make funding available to law enforcement agencies to target organized crime and provide additional tools, such as our recently introduced Unexplained Wealth Act, to crack down on drug traffickers and other organized crime groups that exploit vulnerable Manitobans. It's interesting to note that one of the vehicles several of the vehicles contained hidden compartments, and this is specifically targeted in new legislation that's before the legislature right now. And we're hoping for swift passage and cooperation from all sides of the House to get that done. We'll continue to work in cooperation with agencies across Canada to track down and bring to justice those who seek to profit from these destructive activities. Together, we can make Manitoba a safer place for everyone. So once again, on behalf of all Manitobans, a sincere thank you to the police officers, prosecutors, and so many others that were involved in this complex investigation. Thank you.
If there's any questions, you can bring them forward now. Inspector Hall or Mr. Weep will certainly address them accordingly.
Inspector Hall, you mentioned that several other people were arrested after these warrants were executed and then released without charges, but charges are still expected. Can you just speak to that delay that these people have been released, they still may be charged?
It's ongoing investigation. So we arrested several people during our takedown day. They were people of interest. We want to further investigate their potential involvement in the group. And so at this time they're released, but I want to be clear that the investigation in Winnipeg isn't finished and it's ongoing.
So those arrests and then release with possible other charges, those are all in Winnipeg?
Yes, they are. Yep.
And you spoke to reporters on March 6th. Safe to say that that was about this incident?
It's about this incident, and I was asked to go into the media just given the amount of response from the public in Winnipeg, which was justified.
Could you say again how many people were arrested in Winnipeg?
Let me do the math in my head here. 2, 3, 4, 22. We're at 17 right now in Winnipeg.
And how many of them have been released on the 7th?
I know of at least 3 that have been released, but a large percentage of the individuals arrested are still in custody right now.
Can you speak just about the significance of an operation of this size, the impact that it might have on organized crime and drug trade here in Winnipeg?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a big question. In Winnipeg, we have a very unique geographical location in North America. And in Winnipeg, and what we're seeing here is we have an influx of gangs, guns, and drugs coming through the city, something we've really noticed in the last 2 years, which also includes human and sex trafficking and money laundering. We're just centralized. We have one of the biggest land ports being established here. And so, the traditional way of drugs coming up the West Coast and going across Canada and money coming back east just isn't, it's just not the way it works anymore. We have all kinds of criminal activity at the border coming across everywhere, but we do seem to have an intersection here in Winnipeg, and we've noticed an increase in the last 4 or 5 years. So we do in the organized crime unit now, as I've mentioned since I've been the inspector here, we're looking at targeting high-value targets and individuals that are in charge of organized crime or networks that bring violence and crime into Winnipeg, not just in Winnipeg, but the surrounding area in Manitoba. This is a very globalized market, as you know, and organized crime is no different. People in other countries or other parts of the world can be conducting crime in Winnipeg. They don't necessarily have to be here. So as an agency, we have to expand and adapt to that, and we've been doing that. And that's why a lot of these investigations from organized crime unit go interprovincial or international. We're one of the few municipalities that do that right now. Other municipalities are starting to do the same thing. I mean, organized crime just expanded and blown up in Canada over the last 5 to 10 years. And so the impact here in Winnipeg is significant. It's these operations and these organized crime groups that create the violence you see on the street. 10 or 15 years ago, street gangs are just street gangs, and they were kind of operating in their own neighborhoods, but they're now heavily influenced by organized crime. Organized crime provides the drugs, the money, and the handguns, and results in the violence you see on the street right now. That's how organized crime makes their money. That's just what we see on the street. You still have the human trafficking, sex trafficking, money laundering aspect, cryptocurrency aspect that we have to consider as well. So very complex and a lot of moving parts, not just in Manitoba, but across the country and internationally.
You mentioned that on this 6th, some of the officers had to take kind of covert, methods to try and protect the safety of the public. How common is that? Is this kind of like a rare, measure, or is this something that's part of the standard police playbook?
No, it's not standard. This is new for us. So when we are up on individuals and they commit an offense like a shooting, it becomes our responsibility to prevent that, right? It changes the aspect of an investigation. Gun violence in Winnipeg is something that's fairly new. Over the last 2 or 3 years, it's become a real problem. So no, we went to the courts. We said, look, we're asking you and permission of a judge to break the law and prevent the movement of people. Are you going to authorize that for the safety of Winnipeggers? And yes, it was. So we prevented the movement of vehicles. We were prepared to prevent the movement of individuals going into certain locations. Again, that's not just something we're doing. We went to the courts and said, we have an issue here. We had to quickly come up with a takedown day and a method to prevent further shootings from going on. This is something we saw in Project Phoenix as well, the movement of firearms. It's very difficult. We don't want to be in that business where we're allowing firearms to go onto the street or be moved, so we have to find ways to prevent it from moving, intercept them from being moved, and so yeah, for this investigation here, it's not usual, but it's not common for us to do it, but obviously public safety is paramount, and so we obviously had to change our game plan to.
And just so I understand, did that incident kind of accelerate how quickly the project was moving forward?
We were planning a takedown, I'll be honest, but I think we moved it up several days because of the shooting, yep.
Did that affect the charges that you guys were expecting? Pardon me, let me reword. Is that why there were people who were arrested who charges are still pending for, who haven't been charged yet?
So I'll say what you're asking is part of disclosure, but I will be clear, part of our continuing investigation is the firearms aspect of this project. It's not just that incident. There were other transactions that probably occurred and things that occurred during the project that we want to dive into deeper, and they're firearm related.
Thank you.
Yep.
And would you be continuing with the project soft landing? Would there be further investigations on this? It started in May, right? So
Yeah.
What next for Project Soft Landing?
Well, so I always get asked the same question, like, what did you do during this time or what's going on? This project spans over several months, but we have other projects on the go as well where, I feel bad for some of the officers who are being pulled in different directions sometimes, and our crime analysts are overworked because we're trying to do multiple projects at the same time. To answer your question, though, although this is a press conference and although we're showing you what we've seized, part of this investigation is still ongoing. I do expect that we're going to be laying further charges and arresting people at a later date. And
you also mentioned about cases of human trafficking. Any specific incidents you want to talk about?
Nothing I would discuss here at the moment. Although we're aware of human trafficking, we do have a unit within a police service that deals with it, so I definitely do not want to comment on what they do or any investigations they have. When you conduct a criminal organized crime investigation or an investigation involving these networks of people across the country, as soon as you start following money and watching where money's going and how it's being transferred and the amounts being transferred, you can quickly determine that we probably have a problem here with A, human trafficking, or B, sex trafficking, and you have to look into it further. If you follow the money, generally you can start to figure this out. It's very difficult to investigate people, but if you can follow how money transactions work and follow where money's being moved and they're trying to hide money, you can try and determine if sex or human trafficking is occurring. So I can say safely in Winnipeg, we're not investigating any further. We've closed that door with this project, but Project Soft Landing is ongoing. There's other avenues we're looking at right now.
And are you going to take some extra preventive measures, especially because, all these things have come via railways, cars, vehicles, trucks. So is there going to be an extra vigilance of anything coming inside the province?
Yeah, so, I've said over the last couple of years, the organized crime unit's taking this seriously. Like, we have an organized crime problem in Canada, and we've determined that given our geographical location, it heightens our awareness here. I work closely with other agencies. We work very closely with the RCMP. We're very vigilant of it. Organized crime is hard to investigate, and it takes time. And as I said, it's very complex. But extra measures, well, we're always taking extra measures, and we have to change with the times, and we have to change with technology. When we arrest people, they become smarter. They all share their information, like we share information with law enforcement agencies, so we have to better ourselves while they're trying to improve themselves as well. So we always try and take extra measures, but without getting into any sort of investigative techniques. That's probably about as far as I'll go. Yep.
You mentioned a machine gun, I didn't quite catch that. But how common or uncommon is that to see in Winnipeg?
Well, you know what? Over the last 2 or 3 years, we're starting to see these high-powered rifles or machine guns. This is, again, it's new to Winnipeg. Like over the last 3 to 5 years, you're seeing an increase in gun violence. The ability to 3D print guns also helps, but we clearly have a trafficking issue into the country as well with firearms. So, although some of these rifles and some of these machine guns are legal, we're seeing a lot that are not legal in Canada, and so it's becoming a concern, obviously. I think here, our service does I think we do a good job in trying to disrupt and prevent firearms violence, but it's getting to a point where we can't control it. It's like drug trafficking or drug use. Like at some point, you just kind of lose control of it. And we're getting dangerously close to that point where there's going to be too many guns on the street. And so that's why I've been lobbying the federal government and kind of banging this drum about 3D printing. Like, we really need to try and figure that out. The trafficking we can deal with. I think we do a decent job of that. 3D printing is hard.
You mentioned the proceeds will be redirected to prevent crime, so over $1 million cash, where will that go?
So, I'm not sure if you want to answer it. The proceeds here obviously go to the government. It goes to an agency that looks at how these funds can be distributed. It's not just for law enforcement. It's for, as far as organic or ground roots social agencies that want funding for computers. I don't know, like whatever they're looking for funding, this is something they can apply to and have those funds redirected to. So it goes back to the government, and they try and distribute this to other agencies. When I say that, just not law enforcement, other agencies within the system that are looking for financial assistance. It's nice to be able to take this proceeds you see here and actually put it back into the community in some way, shape, or form.
Regarding the firearms, so you said that some of them were smuggled from the US.
Yes.
How do you know that? Does that mean that these group had a connection maybe with another group in the United States? And regarding the firearms that were 3D printed, is that something that you see very often, and how important of a threat is it?
So the firearms, we're able to track and test the firearms. We know they came from the United States. The 3D printing, what were you asking about that again? Sorry?
Is it something that you see very often now?
It's increasing, yeah, it's increasing. So here we've been able to identify 3 groups that were printing firearms or receivers for firearms, and they were printing them for one reason, put them on the street and sell them in that regard. All 3 of these groups were identified. All 3 heads or individuals that were involved in this are in jail right now. It doesn't necessarily stop one of them. We actually rearrested somebody who was in jail trying to have other individuals print guns to go on the street. So it's this is very new to our service and to Canada, really. Over the last 3 to 4 years, you're seeing an increase in this type of printing.
I'm not asking you to go into details, but is it something that needs a lot of logistics to print guns?
It's very, not that I want to be educating people, but it's not hard to do, I guess is the best way of putting it. And to answer your other question, if this is international, if it was linked, yes. Some of these individuals have international connections, which is why you're seeing the importation of drugs and guns into the country, and why human and sex trafficking become a big issue for us as an agency and for these types of investigations.
Any work with American law enforcement at all in this?
Yes, I'll just leave it at yes, we have.
And the items we see in front of us today, is that all things that were seized in Winnipeg, or was this seized in the searches across the country?
Some of this, some of this is across the country. Obviously, we can't bring a vehicle back that easily, but we were able to, this is the best part about having some funding from the government. It allows us to go out and actually get not only the individuals that are doing this and charge them here in Manitoba, but we can also bring back some of the money, which you see here. A lot of this money actually was coming to Winnipeg. We were able to get it before it arrived. Some of the guns, the drugs, et cetera. So not all in Winnipeg. Probably about 50% of it's here, but some of this is from the Ontario and Vancouver area as well.
And so will all of the individuals charged, will they be facing prosecution in Manitoba?
Likely. Sometimes Crown attorneys will make a deal where they, if they're from Hamilton, for example, they might work out a deal where they can deal with their charges in Ontario. But the purpose of bringing them back to Winnipeg is we want them to face court here under these charges that we have.
Minister Reid, maybe? So this year alone, we've seen record-breaking drug busts at the land border, at the airport, and now something of this scale. What's the province doing to, A, help agencies kind of combat this, and B, to put a stop to this kind of thing?
Yeah, specifically in this case, the work of the Criminal Intelligence Center has been absolutely vital to share information. I think part of what you're hearing today is that there's been a coordination across law enforcement agencies and support specifically to look into some of the details. I also understand that in this case there are some there's a financial element to this, right? Which is something that our Unexplained Wealth Act that we have introduced in the legislature is looking to give more tools to law enforcement to continue that work. We know that this is an issue across the country, and estimates put the value of some of those assets that are hidden behind corporations and beneficial ownership situations, in the billions. And so that means that we need to go after those folks, those organized crime groups, and we can do that with strengthening the laws, strengthening the tools that law enforcement have, and that's what we've introduced in the legislature. All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. And before we close off here, we'll just have Deputy Chief Gene Bowers just close us off. And any further questions, you can certainly pass on to the PIO at the end of the day.
So just on behalf of the police executive, I just want to thank the work that our organized crime unit has done here. As you see, these results are due to the dedication and professionalism of our members and our ability to work with the province and other agencies across the country. So We recognize that, and we're going to continue to combat this organized crime in our city and in our province. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody's recognized for their hard work. Thank you.
One thing before we're done, would someone from the police or maybe the minister be able to make a comment in French? No, okay.
Je ne sais pas. So sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, if there are any further questions throughout the day, by all means, we'll try and answer them for you, even pass any questions on to Inspector Hall if need be. If you want a further photo op to come forward, we'll certainly try and accommodate as best as we can. Thank you so much for coming out today. Appreciate it.